Hey, everybody. Hey, it's Rolf again, your host of Waves and Positions. Today, we've got a really cool one. The title is called The True American. And you're going to find out about a man named Cassius Clay, not the boxer. Ha! So, if you go to my Substack, which is Waves and Positions on Substack, you can just, the link is in my bio on this YouTube channel. I like to write these articles which I categorize as hidden history. So usually it'll be something I'm familiar with, and probably most people have heard something about all my stories, but they might not know the full story. So I call it hidden history. And you can search at Waves and Positions / hidden history to see all the articles are hidden history. Anyways, this one is entitled The True American: How Cassius Marcellus Clay turned Kentucky streets into a battleground for freedom. And I think this will probably shock you because Muhammad Ali changed his name, and he kind of said that he did that because Cassius Clay was his slave name. But just wait till you hear this article. It's probably going to throw your perspective about everything around. The first time they tried to kill him, he was given a speech. The bullet hit his chest and stopped on a metal armor hidden under his coat. That was when the knife came out. 0 to hero, from slaveholding son to Lion of Whitehall. Cassius Marcellus Clay was born in 1810 into a dynasty of wealth and slaves in Madison County, Kentucky. His father, Green Clay, was one of the richest men in the state. By blood and inheritance, young Cassius should have become another master defending the old order. But Yale changed everything. In New Haven, he heard William Lloyd Garrison thunder against slavery, and the words lodged deep in him. Returning home, he became the unlikeliest of Southerners, a man of privilege who dared to call slavery wrong. That single choice put a target on his back for the rest of his life. Raising the stakes when ideas became blood sport. Clay launched an abolitionist newspaper in Lexington called The True American. So that's where we get The True American. That was the title of his abolitionist newspaper. Pro-slavery mobs called him a traitor. Armed men stormed his press in 1845. He faced them with pistols and bowie knives, but friends pulled him away to avoid a massacre. This was not politics as usual. In Kentucky, abolition meant violence. Now, here's some things that happened to him in his life. The 6-to-1 knife fight, 1843. He was shot in the chest while speaking in Foxtown. The bullet deflected by a steel vest. Bleeding and furious, he slashed back with a bowie knife, killing one assailant, decapitating another, and scattering the rest. Don't mess with this guy, dude. Cassius Clay. The duel with Robert Wycliffe Jr. His feud with Kentucky's most powerful pro-slavery politicians was so bitter, the crowds gathered to see if they would kill each other on sight. The Rally Ambush, 1849. Thugs beat him nearly to death with canes and knives at a pro-slavery convention. Left for dead in the street, he returned weeks later, swearing vengeance, and went right back to campaigning. Clay lived as if death itself had to negotiate with him. Why these fights mattered. These weren't random brawls. They gave abolitionism something it rarely had in the South, a warrior face. To abolitionists in the North, Clay became a folk hero. To his enemies in Kentucky, he was proof that the anti-slavery cause would not be silenced by fear. To Abraham Lincoln, he was an asset, a fearless ally who could rally a divided border state. His very survival shifted the balance. He showed that one man's courage could buy the time for an idea to spread. Clay and Lincoln, allies with different speeds. Cassius Marcellus Clay was not just a brawler, he was also a politician with vision. And in 1860, he threw his full weight behind a little-known Illinois lawyer named Abraham Lincoln. Clay campaigned for him tirelessly in Kentucky, helping secure a critical border state that would easily have gone Confederate. Lincoln rewarded him with influence and even considered him for vice president before ultimately choosing Hannibal Hamlin. Clay's mix of aristocratic pedigree, abolitionist fire, and Southern roots made him a tempting choice to balance the ticket. Yet the two men did not always see eye to eye. Clay wanted to strike at slavery faster and harder than Lincoln was ready to risk. He believed bold emancipation would strengthen the Union cause and win moral clarity. Lincoln, ever the strategist, moved cautiously, balancing northern moderates and wavering border states. Clay pushed for rapid freedom. Lincoln pushed for survival first. In the end, Lincoln's deliberate pace carried the day, but Clay's pressure kept the issue alive and unignorable. Their partnership was a study in contrasts. The calculating lawyer who measured every word, and the Kentucky Hercules who drew knives in the street. Together, they embodied the two fronts of the same war. One fought in speeches and laws, the other in courage and defiance, turning pain into power. Clay's battles weren't just with mobs. His personal life carried the same fire. After 45 years of marriage to Mary Jane Warfield, he divorced her in 1878. A scandal in elite Kentucky society. Then at 84, he shocked the nation by marrying a poor 15-year-old tenant farmer's daughter, Dora Richardson. The marriage collapsed within a year. Dora fled and Clay lived his final decade alone at his estate, Whitehall, a man both legendary and eccentric. This scandal symbolized his life. He broke rules because he believed none applied to him. That audacity made him heroic in youth and reckless in old age. But it was always the same fire. Now, the win-win lesson. You don't need to face a mob with knives to learn from Cassius Clay. What he proved is this: ideas are fragile until someone fights for them. Courage is contagious. One man standing his ground can tilt an entire state's balance. Your scars are not liabilities. They are receipts that you showed up when it mattered. The same mindset applies today, whether you're building a business, leading a movement, or defending your values. The world won't hand you safety first. It will test you. And how you fight back will become the story others tell. Final thought. Cassius Marcellus Clay lived to 92. A relic and a legend, remembered as both a fighter for freedom and a scandalous eccentric. He was never perfect, but he was impossible to ignore. You don't need to be a knife-wielding Kentucky Hercules to channel his energy. You only need the resolve to hold your ground when everyone else is running. That is how ordinary people become extraordinary. Now read this slowly. Let it sink in. The courage you admire in others can live in you too. All right, that's the end of that article, but then I have an addendum after the references. So you can read this on my Substack, Waves and Positions. And I got a little addendum because you can't talk about Cassius Clay without talking about the other Cassius Clay. Why Cassius Clay sounds familiar. The boxer who carried his name. For more than a century after Cassius Marcellus Clay fought mobs in the streets of Kentucky, another fighter was born in Louisville. His parents named him Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr., honoring the fiery abolitionist who had defied a slaveholding state. That boy became Muhammad Ali. At first, the name was meant as tribute. Ali's father admired Clay, the white Kentuckian who had stood against slavery with guns and knives when almost no one else of his class dared. Naming his son after him was a way of connecting to that fearless legacy. But Ali grew into a different kind of fighter. After joining the Nation of Islam in the 1960s, he declared, "Cassius Clay is my slave name." He chose Muhammad Ali instead a name he said reflected his true identity, faith, and independence. The irony is sharp. Okay. The abolitionist Clay had risked everything to break the chains of slavery. Yet the name itself still carried the weight of Kentucky's slaveholding dynasty. Ali transformed that legacy into something new, not inherited, but chosen. One man fought with a knife in the dirt streets of Kentucky. The other fought with his fists in the ring and his voice on the world stage. Both were impossible to ignore. And I'm wearing my Princess Bride shirt. Got to see a really cool presentation from the actor who plays Wesley back in November 2025. Came to Honolulu and did a whole talk. We got to watch The Princess Bride, and then afterwards he, for about an hour, talks about his experience making The Princess Bride and how it went from a Hollywood theater flop to a blockbuster hit, because it was something, you know, you could put in during the holidays and the whole family could enjoy it. So anyways, I'm Rolf and I am your host at Waves and Positions, and we'll see you on the next one.